So the United States, they've imposed fresh sanctions on Russia. And I wanted to just run you through this very quickly. Here's a clip of Biden announcing them.
With their hands tied behind their backs. Civilians executed in cold blood, bodies dumped into mass graves. A sense of brutality and inhumanity left for all the world to see unapologetically. There's nothing less happening than major war crimes. Responsible nations have to come together to hold these perpetrators accountable. And together with our allies and our partners, we're going to keep raising the economic cost and ratchet up the pain for Putin and further increase Russia's economic isolation. To the head with a hand.
Right. So basically, the United States, G7, the European Union, they've announced new sanctions on Russian financial institutions, Russian officials, and their family members. Because remember, up until this war, Iran was the #1 sanctioned country. Now it's Russia. So 5,530 sanctions. Now it's a bit more. They're running out of people to sanction. So now they're going after people's family members. Okay, so that includes Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister. So they've gone after his wife and his daughter. They've gone after Putin's adult children. Here's the statement from the White House. So they published a fact sheet on this. Full blocking sanctions on Russian elites and their family members, including sanctions, as we said, on Putin's adult children, Lavrov's wife and daughter, members of Russia's Security Council, including former President and Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev and Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin. These individuals have enriched themselves at the expense of the Russian people. Yeah, sounds a lot like US billionaires. Some of them are responsible for providing the support necessary to underpin Putin's war on Ukraine. And so this action cuts them off from the US financial system and freezes any assets they hold in the United States. Now, the institutions that they've sanctioned, this includes Russia's Sberbank, Alfa Bank. They think, though, that it's not going to have a big impact. And this is from Reuters. Let's take a look why. The new sanctions hit Sberbank, which holds 1/3 of Russia's total banking assets, and Alfa Bank, which is the country's 4th largest financial institution. And of course, energy transactions were exempt because they need the Europeans to be able to continue to buy gas, right? And if they would target the energy sector, and the Europeans, obviously, they need gas from Russia, and they will continue to buy that gas, then the US would sanction them too. That's how sanctions work, right? They try to intimidate others, from dealing with you. So they scare people away, and they make your friends, your business partners drop you like a hot potato. That's the goal of sanctions, in addition to making civilians suffer, of course. Now, the US Treasury said that transactions with Sberbank and Alfa Bank need to wind down through April 12th and May 5th, respectively, so in the next couple of weeks. And they say this, so according to Sberbank, they said the sanctions will not have a significant impact on the bank's operations and will not affect service to Russians, as the system has already adapted to the previous restrictions. So keep in mind that when it comes to Russia's payment system, they developed something called MIR, M-I-R. Now, in 2014, when you had everything at Maidan and Crimea and everything that was happening between Russia and Ukraine back then, the Russians were already under threat of being removed from SWIFT. They weren't, but just because of the threat, they started developing alternatives, right? So an alternative to the SWIFT banking system. And of course, internally in Russia, they have MIR. Now, the thing is, MIR is really, the cards are government issued. A lot of people have them, but the bulk of the transactions are domestic, not international, right? But now you have China that's come in, and China has something called Union Pay, which is, it's sort of a Chinese equivalent to MasterCard and Visa. And the fact is, Visa and MasterCard pulled out of Russia. They kind of just handed their market share on a silver platter to the Chinese. And now China's linked Union Pay with MIR, and Venezuela and Iran want to link their payment systems to MIR. So what you're seeing here, again, is another incentive for not just the payment systems, but the financial system itself to circumvent not just the sanctions, but the entire system itself in general by building alternatives. And yeah, in the short term, you think, wow, this is great, really giving it to them. Okay, but one day, SWIFT, the Western financial institutions are going to take a hit because they've basically incentivized, they have forced, in a sense, Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela to develop a parallel system that cannot be just, turned on and off at the flick of a switch by lawmakers, policymakers in Brussels and DC. And so they're shooting themselves in the foot. And it's kind of funny, they're just running out of people to sanction, going after, Lavrov's daughter. It's like, it reminds me when they went after Bashar al-Assad's son, who was like, I don't know, like 17. Can he even open a bank account? It's just so stupid. It makes sense, of course, because sometimes they'll have their family members do things for them, so it's not in their name, and there's no restrictions then. But again, at this point, they're not stupid. Lavrov is not going to get his daughter to go open a bank account for him somewhere, especially when they have eyes on him and his family, right? It's just, I think it's more pettiness than anything else at this point. But regardless, shouldn't take this lightly. The sanctions are plentiful, 5,530 plus. So Russia's the number one sanctioned country now. And I think, the impact this has on Russian civilians is very, very great. So when they say that, we've sanctioned Putin's children are stinking rich. They're privileged. They're not going to feel sanctions. The unprivileged people, the regular people in Russia, the civilians, will feel the sanctions. But they don't tell you that part in their nice little statement, right? They don't tell you that part on CNN. Like, we just sanctioned this Russian oligarch. Motherfucker, the oligarch is swimming in money. He's not going to feel the sanctions. You're shitting on Russian civilians. They never tell you this, ever, not as plainly as I said it, nor implicitly. They can't do that, because then, people would wake up to what sanctions are, and you would not have as much of the public willing to just kind of cheer this on blindly like a bunch of idiots in the EU, in the US. It's siege warfare. It's like, you're preventing people from buying basic necessities like food, gas. I mean, how is that punishing Putin? It's not punishing Putin at all. At all, and they know this. They have entire teams of people who sit down and calculate to the decimal what the impact of the sanctions are going to be. They know this. They're not stupid. But the media, they don't want to tell you this truth, because they support the sanctions. They support the siege warfare. And honestly, long term, they're shooting themselves in the foot. Russia, China will find alternative systems. Well done.